touch, I felt his guiding hand. The buck was mine forevermore.
Hey, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure to have my next guest on. He's from Special Operations Speaks. He's one of the founding members. He's Colonel Dick Brauer. Hey, Colonel Brauer, welcome back to the show.
Don, it's great to be back. Thank you.
Well, you know, we're watching all this stuff play out with the negotiations between Iran and the United States. And really, I mean, the Congress is being completely shut out of this situation by President Barack Obama. What is your take on that? What's your view on that?
Business as usual. What Obama has been doing is changing the process, and the process is to get the Congress involved, and that's why if we talk about the authorization of use of military force, it's just another example of what he's done to bypass the Congress and our legislative branch.
So now, because there's been a lot of discussion here this week about the letter that was put together by some of our congressmen, and it was a letter really just letting Iran know that this is not a lawful deal. You cannot shut out Congress on these things, and I support him. And I think when the Ayatollah comes out and is against the GOP, I'm feeling pretty good about the side I'm on. What are your thoughts about the letter?
I support the letter because they're doing what the president should have done. Absolutely, he's backed away from his responsibilities as our commander-in-chief and our leader. Obvious when Netanyahu had to be invited here by the Congress is beginning to flex their muscles finally, and I think that the letter was just another way of saying, hey, you know, you're bypassing us, and it's our intent to get back on track, I guess is the best way to say it. This business about the use of military force is just another illustration that Obama is going to declare war. Obama wants to use the Congress to join him and rubber stamp a war against ISIL by providing him, Obama, the authorization for the use of military force, referred to as AUMF, and that was a joint resolution passed by Congress right after the events of 9/11, but it was passed on September 14th, 2001 by President George Bush. And Obama continues to use that term, ISIL, and refuses to use the term ISIS, which is the Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham.
You know, it goes even further than that because the president says, I mean, it's the Islamic State, Colonel, and the president says they're neither Islamic nor a state. I think it's mind-boggling to hear our president deny who these people say they are. I don't think it's up to him to decide whether they're Islamic or a state for that matter.
No, he's intentionally doing that. There are a lot of people that are afraid to say it. I'm not, and several of my colleagues aren't afraid to say it either, but Obama is, he will not say the words radical Islam, which is the larger global threat. We call it the global war against radical Islam. Some of our organizations that we affiliate with use the term GWARI, G-W-A-R-I, global war against radical Islam. And he refuses to acknowledge that because it contains the term Islam. Now, I am of the school that the king has no clothes. Obama is a Muslim. His father was a Muslim, and if you read the Quran and Sharia, which is Islamic law, then he is automatically a Muslim because his father was a Muslim. And unless he renounces his faith, which is called apostasy, then he remains a Muslim. And if you do renounce Islam and you are accused of apostasy, then I'll leave it up to you and your listeners as to what the penalty might be for that.
But, and Colonel, here's another aspect of that, too, to even dig a little deeper into that. All you have to do is look at the people that the president has surrounded himself with. I mean, it's a countless number of officials within his cabinet that are just all around him that also are Muslims as well.
Not only Muslims, but the Muslim Brotherhood. And you can get a list of the 8 or 9 or 10 names. The Muslim Brotherhood, I'm sorry to say, has penetrated our government. We are being attacked from within. And one of the key conclusions that S.O.S. has made is that if you look at both Obama's internal and foreign dealings, big and small, he has a greater affinity for Islam and jihadis than he does for middle-class America. When a decision point when he's at a decision point, he always decides in favor of Islam, direct and indirectly. These are his roots, and he has made public statements to that effect. He was raised in Indonesia. He was schooled in that religion, and he is a Muslim, and he will not admit it. Now, most people, I think we've got over 50 or 60% in the United States, do believe he's a Muslim, no matter what he says. But including his association with Jeremiah Wright and all those leftist-leaning things. But he is a Muslim, and I'm not afraid to say it.
No, and neither am I. And if you look at it, I mean, just a few of the names. I mean, John Brennan, the CIA director. I mean, we've got
right.
Valerie Jarrett, who many say is actually the president, and I would maybe kind of agree with that. And it also goes into Hillary Clinton as well. Her top advisor, Abadan, part of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is indisputable, factual information, but nobody can talk about it. I mean, in fact, they're afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, Habadin or whatever, however you say it, absolutely. They have penetrated everywhere. If you read Edward Klein's books, he has two excellent books. One is The Amateur, and the second one is Blood Feud. And I would recommend the second one especially. There are chapters on Valerie Jarrett and the influence that woman has within the White House, having access to any room in the White House, day or night. Her nickname is the Night Stalker, and the presence. And I know from what I've read and heard that the staff is deathly afraid of her. She has near absolute power with Obama. If you go back in the history of Michelle and Obama working for her, but Michelle, she was Michelle's boss. You can see that the ties go way back, and the influence of an Iranian entity in the White House is there. So it's frightening. We've been infiltrated.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I want to talk about your group here for a minute and the things that you're working on right now, because for those who don't know, Special Operations Speaks, and you can check them out at specialoperationsspeaks.com, and I highly encourage you to do that. But this is a group that actually, I have to say, Colonel, I think you guys had as much to do, if not the leading force, I think you were the leading force, of getting the Special Select Committee when it comes to Benghazi. I mean, you would not let this go away. I mean, even John Boehner on our side really wanted to make this thing go away and just everybody stop talking about it. But you've got a new focus right now. First of all, tell us a little bit about your group, but tell us about your new focus right now when it comes to what we've been talking about here, about defining war.
Right. Basically, in a nutshell, make a long story short, as they say, S.O.S. got its start in May and June of 2012, and our initial thrust and our cause célèbre there was OPSEC, operational security, the lack thereof. Just as soon as bin Laden was taken down, this administration, Biden, Obama, others, absolutely gave away the keys to the kingdom in terms of operational security, things that many of us had sworn for the rest of our lives never to disclose, and that is the operational techniques, tactics, and procedures of special ops units, that once that bell is rung, you can't unring it, and that endangers future operations. It endangers the forces themselves, our men and women in the field, and it endangers the families of those folks. So we got our start in OPSEC and calling attention to the fact that this administration continues to give away our secrets, and treats everything as if it were unclassified. Well, that led into Benghazi, and that was really the thing that got us going. We were one of the first organizations. There are several others that have been involved, but we took a stand, and it took 19 months. I kept a calendar to get John Boehner to agree to form a select committee, and we were wishing and hoping, though we had no control over it, that an attack dog would be a learned attack dog, if you will, would head it up, and we even said, gee, we'd love to see Trey Gowdy do it, and we got what we asked for. Other organizations did the same thing, but we had a bone in our teeth, and we kept on doing that. And we were actually meeting up in Virginia on when it was announced, and after 19 months of doing everything we could, speeches, billboards, letters, press releases, on the two of them in front of the Congress, on the steps and on the lawn and so on, we finally got that going. But As you know, Obama gives us ammunition every day. We'll never run out of ammunition with what goes on, and we call it our dime. We have a chart called the dime, D-I-M-E, and those are the four elements of U.S. national power: our diplomacy, D, our information, I, our military, M, and the economy, E. And we've built an entire structure of events that will show that we are being dismantled piece by piece by this administration, the internal Muslim Brotherhood operations behind the scenes, and so on and so on. So if you go to our website at specialoperationspeaks.com, you'll probably see us refer to the dime, and we'll be pursuing that more and more as time goes on, because this is a complete campaign, a complete intentional assault upon what makes us a great country, and that is our four elements of national power: diplomacy, information, military, and economy.
One of the things that I think is really important here, and again, hats off to you, everybody at your organization. You've got some great people there, and we've had a chance to have a number of them on here as well. But let's talk about this, because you're talking about how Congress must define and declare war before sending a single soldier to fight against ISIS. Here's the thing. We've talked about defining the enemy. I mean, you've got to be able to call them what they are. This is radical Islam, and we cannot skirt around it. We cannot use political correctness to try to not offend anybody. And we're worried about not offending people that are beheading people, that are burning people alive. I mean, the insanity is unbelievable. But I want to talk about this aspect of it, because I think this is the real problem, is when the president asks for the authorization for the use of military force, what does he want? Because, Colonel, we don't know what he wants, and he's got to define, well, actually Congress should, define the rules of engagement, because I think that's one of the really big problems here is nobody really knows exactly what he's asking for.
Right. If this, and when I got to thinking about this, of the three things we ask for: defining the enemy, the rules of engagement, if I had to pick one, this is the one that affects the military the most. And if you'll allow me just to say a few things about the rules of engagement. Mm-hmm. Many Americans are now aware of the stories behind Lone Survivor, which should have won Academy Awards up the yin-yang, but it didn't, or rather American Sniper and American Sniper, and realize that when our troops today are faced with life and death decisions, it seems like they fear our lawyers and the media more than the enemy. They most often face what I like to refer as a non-state, non-uniformed enemy that blends in with the civilian population, as you saw in American Sniper, if you've seen that movie or read that book. And those people know our rules of engagement. Karen Vaughn, who I've met, a wonderful lady, lost her son, a SEAL in Afghanistan. She wrote, and I'll quote what she said: "Our best and brightest come home in body bags as politicians and lawyers dine over white linen tablecloths, writing, modifying, and remodifying those lethal ROE. Rules that favor the enemy rather than the American soldier. Rules so absurd they're difficult to believe until you hear the same stories over and over again from those returning from battle," unquote. Bottom line, I think, is on today's battlefields, a constant fear is haunting our troops, a fear of persecution by our government that leads to internal hesitation, and as Alan West said, a good friend, and that leads to death. We've got to define and redo the existing rules of engagement. At one time, our ROE said, if you ever feel like your life is threatened, you can respond with force to include deadly force. But that isn't true anymore. And make no mistake, instead of being afraid of the might of U.S. firepower, those enemy fighters, ISIL and everybody else out there, use our rules of engagement and restrictions on air support against us. When faced with split decisions, second decisions as to whether to shoot, soldiers many times hesitate because they fear investigation. Or, as in the case of the 2000 Battle of Ganjgal, a 10-hour fight in Afghanistan, which resulted in 2 Medal of Honors. Excessive restrictions on air and artillery assets, unfortunately, meant excessive American deaths. These Obama administration-driven ROE regarding ISIS will restrict our soldiers and airmen to the point of helplessness and cause them to avoid even a possibility of civilian casualties. Hesitation and confusion cause U.S. casualties. Someone once said that the Obama administration treats our ROE governing combat as if they were playground rules, and I would say to Obama, newsflash, it's not a round of golf. The ROE put into place in Afghanistan by Obama in 2009 limited air and artillery strikes in the name of preventing civil casualties, and even at times called for soldiers to refrain from firing their weapons. For example, in Afghanistan, when approaching Taliban fighters, a ground unit would often have to convince a remote commander that the threat was armed before they could engage. This reminds me of my days. I'm a Vietnam vet, and I'm not in the fighter business, but I have a lot of friends that were. And we weren't allowed to strike the airfields where the MiGs were ready to take off and engage and shoot down our own airplanes. We were not allowed to fire until fired upon by missile batteries on the ground. We are reliving the Johnson and McNamara age where they are controlling what will be hit, when it'll be hit, how it'll be hit, and if you can even engage the enemy. So with regard to ISIS, I feel that any failure, if we have any failure, if and when we go to war, so to speak, with ISIS, it won't rest at the hands of our brave troops and our soldiers. It will lie with this administration and our top military leadership and politicians, who in the past have overly choked our troops by restrictive rules of engagements. So Special Ops Speaks, in our recent press release, has spoken out once again and believes that we should allow our military to fight any war with ISIS under non-restrictive ROE because our soldiers and airmen, as someone once said, are experts in the application of violence. Let them do what we train them to do. Let them do what we paid for the equipment to do that mission. Shorter wars, historically, and I'm a kind of a historian, mean less casualties in the long run, military and civilian. Despite being experts at warfare, our military, much like a professional boxer, will never, ever win a fight when their hands are tied behind their back. Unfortunately, it is Obama and some of our own generals and politicians that have done this tying of the hands. If we don't allow our military to carry out their mission to rapidly locate, close with, and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver, and support them with the assets they need, then the future against ISIS will be marked with more American deaths and many more wounded than would have occurred otherwise. The U.S. military, bottom line, is an unstoppable killing machine, and this capability, for which we have trained, bled, and sometimes died, and I'm sorry to say has happened here in Northwest Florida with the tragic helicopter crash 4 nights ago, is what we will need to defeat ISIS and eliminate them as a threat to the free world forever. That leads me to the third element, but I'll open it up to comments that demand S.O.S. wants from our Congress, not Obama.
Well, and the real thing here, Colonel, as well, is we can't go in to any kind of a war situation with the goal of decimating or getting somebody on the run or knocking them down a few notches. We need to go in and either go in for victory or don't go in at all.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So define the goal, the end state. What constitutes victory? As we said in the press release, we don't want to just end the war against ISIS. We want to win it, and definitely win it. My opinion, and others that think like I do, would humbly suggest a total eradication, not just, I hate the word, neutralization, of ISIS fighters and all their war-fighting equipment, much of which we indirectly supplied them, and capabilities, destroy them, would be a worthy mission. We have to, the Congress has to define that goal, not S.O.S., not anybody else, and they must, again, we're not telling Congress they must go to war. They must decide that in accordance with our Constitution, and more importantly, the will of the people. Yep. If we go to war, we must fight to win. Nothing else is worthy of the blood and treasure that we will expend getting rid of this world threat for the rest of the world, and I consider it that once again the U.S. is going to have to save others around the world from a worldwide threat.
I could not agree more with that, Colonel, and I want to encourage all my listeners to go to specialoperationsspeaks.com. This is a group that is all volunteers, and they're able to get the work done that they do by your donations. And if you want to donate to a group that actually gets results, again, these are the guys that brought you the Special Select Committee for Benghazi, or that thing would be long gone by now. Colonel Brauer, thanks to you and all the great people that you've got there at Special Operations Speaks. It's always great to have you on the program, and I wish you the best of luck with this, and I fully support everything you guys are doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Don. And it's my honor to work with these fine gentlemen and ladies that support S.O.S.
All right, that's Colonel Dick Brauer from Special Operations Speaks. Look forward to having you back real soon.
Thank you, Don.
All right, everybody go check out specialoperationsspeaks.com. This is a great organization. Again, if it wasn't for these guys, who knows where we'd be at with this Benghazi thing. We wouldn't even be talking about Hillary's emails and what they mean to this, because I think that's a huge part that's yet to play out. What are in those emails? And for everybody, again, on the left, who's saying, the emails, it's just conspiracy and all this stuff. If there are no emails, which is what they're kind of saying, if there are no emails about Benghazi, then what was she doing? She was the Secretary of State. So I say to those folks, if there are no emails, that's even worse than if there is, because then she didn't even care about it. This is the person who talked about the 3 a.m. phone call. Who was going to answer that call? Well, we know Hillary didn't. Well, I guess we don't know. We'll wait to find out if we get any emails on it. So it's all connected, folks. All this stuff is connected. So go check these guys out. It's a great organization, and proud to call them friends, and I'm just really happy and supportive of everything they do. Hey, I want to thank everybody for being on the show here today. Of course, Michael Cutler, always great to have him on talking about immigration issues, and also Luana Ehrlich. That's a great book. Check out One Night in Tehran if you want to read a great book. And again, it's so timely with everything that's going on. We've got a president who's trying to shut out Congress right now. And then he's angry that they respond. I don't know what he expects. You cannot continually poke somebody with a stick and just expect them to sit there and take it. But that's liberalism. That's what our president does, and he's shown history of it. So we know what we're going to see for the rest of his term. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Republicans are in control. And, of course, from Special Operations Speaks, always a pleasure to have Colonel Dick Brauer on the program. But most of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the program. Hopefully I'm feeling better here next week, but I'll hang in there, and you do the same. So come back here next week at noon for a brand new Don Smith Show. Have a great weekend, everybody.